divorced at the beginning of last year. After we got divorced, I found out I was pregnant. I decided to keep the baby, and in November of last year, my son Christopher was born. Chris lives with me Sunday to Friday, and on Saturdays he stays with Ben. My husband's new fiancée, Genevieve, yes, with AJ, is acting like Chris is her son. She's trying to teach Chris to call her mommy, even though that is what he calls me. She criticizes my purchases and baby products and calls me cheap, and even tells me she should have part custody even though she and Ben aren't even married. What pushed me too far was when I posted a picture of my baby. Genevieve had the audacity to tell me I can't take a picture of my baby without her permission when I gave birth to the baby and I take care of him most of the week. The worst part is that she posts pictures of the baby, and when she does, she makes it seem like he is her son. After this instance, I couldn't handle her anymore. I gave her and Ben an ultimatum about how she was treating Chris like he is her son when he only sees her once a week, and she isn't even his official stepmom. Ben said I'm being an A, and Jen is just being nice. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I would also check your state laws and parental alienation. It's one thing to want to love the child of your partner/spouse. It's another to pretend to be mom when mom is in the picture and you are the main caretaker. Not to mention to contact all social media sites and report all photos for unsolicited pictures of a minor. As OP is Chris's parent, she can legally request for them to be taken down. Not the a-hole, but stop letting her get you riled up. Just tell her you're not interested in her opinion on baby products, that you're not discussing sharing custody with her, that you will take whatever pictures you want of your son. Don't dignify her nonsense with emotional reaction she's clearly trying to provoke. Just say, I'm not discussing this with you. Yes, this. Ben is the only one you should talk with anything about. She texts, you don't reply, or tell her the first few times that you will only discuss with Ben. They're not married, and even if they were newly so, Jen has no place in the child custody discussion. Eventually though, if Jen stays and marries in, she needs to be a partner in raising Chris, united front. That all needs to start with Ben and come to you both through Ben. Not the a-hole. You should get a lawyer involved in your custody agreement. If this woman remains in your son's life, you are going to have to set clear boundaries. Your ex doesn't seem to understand how confusing this will be in the future. Next story. Am I the a-hole for accidentally upsetting my niece by saying her mom's life would be better if she wasn't born? To summarize, I, 32 female, got into an argument over something ridiculous, and now everyone's mad at me. When my sister, 26 female, was 17, she got pregnant and had a baby girl. Obviously, since she was young, she wasn't exactly ready to raise a kid, but my family did the best we could to help her out. She currently has a stable job and is living with her child and the child's father in their own apartment. The issue is that since she had the baby so young, she never got to really experience her life. I'm child-free, and I'm always enjoying new life experiences, and I know my sister is jealous of me for it. The other day, I came over for her daughter's birthday party, and we were talking about her as a baby. At one point, we started to argue about how she was raised, and I said, "Don't you ever think your life would have been better if she had never been born?" It turns out her daughter was in earshot of this, so she heard everything and got really upset. My sister got defensive and said that her child was the best thing to ever happen to her, called me Nahal and kicked me out of the party. She blocked my number and won't talk to me at all now. My mom is saying I should apologize, but my dad agrees with me on this and says my sister was overreacting. Maybe I was a bit too aggressive when I said it, but I know what I said is true. Am I the a-hole for what I did? You're the a-hole. You're such an a-hole. It's not even a debate. Nobody gives a damn about your child-free status, or how you're a narcissist who thinks your sister is jealous of you. That's her child that she chose to raise. She loves her child more than you and always will, and your role as sister and aunt is either to support them or leave them the hell alone. You should apologize, but I hope she doesn't accept it. You view her daughter as an inconvenience, and I personally wouldn't allow you anywhere near my kid if you were my sister and had that selfish viewpoint. One other thing I'd like to point out is that the only person who sounds jealous here is you. Jealous, petty, and cruel. Your sister is living the best life she can with everything the world gave her, and you're disparaging her privately and publicly because it doesn't fit with your ideal? Sounds to me like your sister turns lemons into lemonade in the form of a beautiful child and a successful life, and you're the sour one. Opie is definitely the jealous one. Her sister has a child, a job, and a family. OP is projecting, assuming her sister is jealous because OP is child-free and enjoying new life experiences. Even doubled down on it because she knows what she's saying is true. Even in her response to the bot, all she says is that she should have waited until her niece was out of earshot to say. OP is bitter. Having a kid doesn't mean you don't get to experience life. Such an ugly attitude. I hope her sister keeps her blocked and keeps her away from her daughter. She obviously has some type of resentment towards this child. You're the a-hole. Holy cow, I was eager to read this, thinking, come on now, let's find out what the context is before jumping to a conclusion. But nope, 100% you are a certified, grade A, worst of the worst a-hole. It was the kid's birthday party. The kid's birthday party. Even if the kid wasn't within earshot, that's not okay to say. I would suggest you apologize, but part of me thinks your sister and her family is better off with no contact from you. I agree with all of this. Why was OP even arguing about how her niece was raised at the child's birthday party? It's so inappropriate. You're the a-hole, OP. So much that I'm shocked you even had to ask. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being offended that my in-laws asked me to have an induction? Plus a little update. I'm 24 female and pregnant with my first child, and I'm due the week before Thanksgiving. My parents live outside of the country, and due to COVID restrictions, my husband, 27 male, and I were not sure if they would be able to make it for the birth. So when my in-laws asked if they could come to stay with us close to our due date, we said yes. My husband's family is huge, and this is something I didn't even consider when we agreed to this, which already has been causing me to have a ton of anxiety. He has 6 siblings, a brother-in-law, and his parents coming. His family is really hoping to stay for Thanksgiving with us after the baby is born. Since his sister and brother-in-law weren't able to take time off for the due date or Thanksgiving Day, we all agreed to celebrate it on the 30th. Well, today we got a call from his family saying that his sister no longer wants to celebrate it on the 30th, but is giving us the option to either have Thanksgiving on the 20th or the 21st. My due date is on the 19th. We told them we have no idea when the baby is actually coming, so we could not promise that this would work. They then asked when our next OB appointment is, and told us to tell our doctor to have the baby induced on the 12th, since that works better for the family. I'm pissed. They didn't even ask us how we feel about it. We are already having to plan to have the house full of people with a newborn while COVID is still a thing. And now they're trying to convince me, the lady who had been puking her guts out for the last 7 months, to make a rushed decision about my first pregnancy to appease other people's schedule. I'm already terrified of the unknown, and this is causing me so much stress. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be induced and for being upset that they asked for this in the first place? Info. We did require that everyone is up to date with flu, COVID, and TDAP shots. We also will require masks to be worn, and no one other than the parents will be allowed to hold the baby. As we now know these things probably won't be respected, we're trying to figure out a new arrangement so they're not all staying with us. For context, my parents are not American, and I did not grow up celebrating Thanksgiving, so I personally do not care for it. I'm in no way prioritizing this over my child. Ultimately, while attempting to protect other people's feelings, we failed to set boundaries. We're working on it. Now for the comments before the little update. Not a home. We are already having to plan to have the house full of people with a newborn. Stop doing that. Even if the baby comes on schedule, you are not going to want to entertain a household full of guests when you've just given birth and are trying to look after a new baby. The decision to invite everyone to stay was the wrong decision, and you and your husband need to withdraw the invitation. Yes, I agree it was the wrong decision. My in-laws owned a property we're renting, so we initially felt like we had to say yes, and we genuinely didn't even consider how much of an issue it would be. It was pretty irresponsible of us, honestly. Get your doctor to tell you that you can't have guests that early in the baby's life. Too much risk. Then they would have to openly tell you that they don't care about your baby, at which point, to hell with them. Induction should only be for medical necessity. You're not the a-hole. That is an insane demand to make of anyone. I hope your partner shut it down. I would tell them all to buzz off, not to come and be an additional stress towards the end of your pregnancy / the first days of your life as a new mom. Unless they're coming down to help you, they should get the hell off. NTA, NTA, NTA. And now for the little update. My husband called my father-in-law and told him we're not comfortable having anyone stay here. Father-in-law is currently looking for another place for them to stay, and said he'll cancel the trip entirely if they're unable to do so. I'm not sure what our relationship with them is right now since so many lines were crossed, but we'll continue to work on setting boundaries. Thank you to mostly everyone for being so kind and giving me a push to stand up for myself and prioritize my transition into parenthood. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for moving out because my nephew is moving in? I'm 23 female still living with my parents, but paying rent of $600 per month, grocery money to my parents of $150 and all my own bills. I graduated uni last year and started my first grown-up job in January. Despite wanting to move out when I started working, my parents convinced me to stay living at home in order to save money, because we live in a very high cost of living city. They told me a few weeks ago that in October, my nephew 17 male would be moving in with us indefinitely. My nephew's mom is my half-sister, and I've only met him once in my life as he lived across the country. I have no problem with him at all, and I know family's family, but I really don't want to live with a teenage boy again. I also have 2 brothers, one still lives at home. Our house is too small for this many people, and I really wanted my own space for friends and dating, etc. So I found a decent studio for $1,500 and told my parents I'm moving out. They were pissed because they said they need my rent money for their mortgage, and especially with my nephew now living with them, groceries plus living expenses will be more expensive. I told them it's not my problem because they invited an additional person to live with us without asking me, so I can make my own decision without asking them. My nephew can get a job when it comes, or they can ask my sister for rent money, but it's not my responsibility. They said I'm an a-hole because family always helps family. Not a-hole. Your parents unilaterally made a decision about your living situation. They changed the terms, so it's perfectly reasonable for you to leave because those terms are not what you want, nor what you'd previously agreed to. Exactly. And Opie's old enough to be making her own decisions about this stuff. I don't know why the parents expect a 23-year-old to live with them forever. Not a-hole. I was in the same scenario. I was 27 when I moved out because my dad stopped working and I was supporting my family. They will continue to rely on your money. Unless you want to live at home forever, jump. I'd agree with the change in terms thing. If your money's that important to the house, you should have a voice in major changes. Why are they voluntarily adding more people, especially minors that cannot contribute, if they are already depending on your rent money? Not stay home. At some point, you are going to leave home. Now is your time. Your parents are apparently enjoying your money and have perhaps come to rely on it. Better you get out, because the longer you stay, the harder it will be to go. Not stay home. They said they need my rent money for their mortgage. And especially with my nephew now living with them, groceries plus living expenses will be more expensive. So you pay rent, but the cousin does not? Another reason to move out. It will be good for you to finally move out. Enjoy it, and do not let them have a key. And now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kid shaming a couple? Context. I'm 28 female, very uncertain with handling kids. Maybe because I've seen parents who flipped the hell out when someone tells their kids no, and how some kids run feral in public places. I don't hate kids, but I'm just very awkward about them. The only kid I'm comfortable handling is my goddaughter, Grace, 3. I just fell completely in love with her the first time I met her. Grace's mom, Val, is a very close friend of mine, and often calls me to help because I live nearby and have a flexible work schedule. Prior to Grace's birth, Val told me that she'd need my help more often since her parents weren't able to travel, and her husband had to go back to the office. But she wanted to give me the choice to say no, because she knew I wasn't familiar around kids. I said yes anyway, but made sure to attend some infant classes, learn baby CPR, and sat on some childcare classes with Val and Dan, so I wasn't completely clueless. I constantly communicate with Val on what I can or cannot do, in terms of setting boundaries when Grace acts up, so everyone is on the same page. Issue? My husband and I were talking to a group of friends when the topic of Grace came up. One couple has a kid around Grace's age, but he is a menace. He's bitten me before because I tried to stop him from running out the front door. This couple asked if I'm teaching Grace not to have fun. And when I asked them to clarify, they said that I was so good at saying no they wondered if Grace has even heard the word yes from me. I was hurt and asked if they would want their kid to touch a hot pan instead, or get hit by a car when running out the front door, things their kid has done. Because having fun is more important than being safe, right? They seemed flustered when I brought it up, but try to wave it off as, well, luckily you're not our babysitter or our kid would lose his spark. I just rolled my eyes and laughed, which apparently offended them because they said that it felt like I was kid-shaming them. My husband, he's a child therapist, said it's not the kids' fault when their parents fail to parent, which pissed them off even more. Conversation ended on a sour note, but no one is called as a-holes, as everyone else has been a victim at one point or another of their kids' behavior. But I've been thinking, I don't have kids, and I don't know how difficult it is to raise one. Maybe they're trying, but some kids are really unmanageable. So maybe I'm the a-hole for being rude to them about it? Not the a-hole, because you were just defending yourself. They were rude in the first place. And you obviously seem like you really want what's best for Grace, seeing as you did your research, CPR, etc. They probably meant it as a joke, but definitely sounds like they meant it as an underlying dig at you anyway. If they can give it, they should be able to take it. Glass houses get you every time. Not stay home. Not stay home. You didn't kid shame them. You pointed out their neglect. The spark is called curiosity. Some curiosity is nurtured. Some curiosity should not. Why are trees green versus, will taking a sharp knife to my skin make me bleed? Absolutely. It's a fine line to walk. Because there are a lot of things in the world that can hurt a kiddo. But curiosity cannot be re-lured once tapped out. It sounds like the neighbor couple overreacted on the free-range feral child erection and are trying to justify the result of their actions. Also, not stay home. I have a kiddo with spark who asks a million questions and make things out of household objects, and who is absolutely 100% not allowed to bite people.